everybody, Crafting Journey here, that journey chick over on Instagram, and down below in the description you'll see a link to my new channel, The Leftovers. Be sure and check that out later on. Yeah, today I have a Murdaugh family update for you. Yes, another person has been charged in the Gloria Satterfield case. You're not going to want to miss that. That's coming up later on the show. And I have added chapters to the show. If you look down in the description, you will see chapters. If you want to skip the boring portion about my life, you know, how I'm unemployed, you can skip right to the murder part. Yep. And before you go, you don't want to miss tomorrow because I'm going to cover the new trial. George, what was his name? George Wagner the Fourth is charged with the murder of the 8 members of the Roden family. I also did a preview to that trial up here in the eye. If you want to see that, check that out. But tomorrow I'm going to cover the opening statements live with you so we can chit chat and I can answer any questions you might have during the openings. That's going to be interesting. Yeah. I wanted to show you what my progress is on the diamond painting that I'm working on for the Great Escape diamond painting event. Now, I think we're 5 weeks. This is 5 weeks worth of work. Yeah, but I don't work constantly on diamond painting. I'm also doing watercolor, crochet, other things. Life. Yeah, but here it is. Let me turn the light pad off. Here we go. So, how was my weekend? Well, it's not over. And we had barbecued ribs last night, and we watched House of Dragons. Oh my God, if you are not watching House of Dragons, last night, let's just say a little bloody. Lots of blood and gore. If you're not into blood and gore, this is not the show for you. Oh my God. But I just love that world, that whole, you know, Westeros, 7 kingdoms, you know, it's Game of Thrones. It's George R.R. Martin. How can you not love it? Although I've read the book, and the House of Dragons is not really following the book. It's like before the book starts, which is weird. Now, I'm not talking about Game of Thrones. I'm talking about, what's the name of the book? Anyway, the book that he wrote that happens 300 years before Game of Thrones. The House of Dragons show starts before the book. That's 300 years before the Game of Thrones starts. Because Aegon is just now born. If you haven't, never mind. If you're not a Game of Thrones fan, I've already gone way too far. Enough about that. You're like, where's the show? Where's the Murdaugh family update? Here it comes. Crafting and Crime Daily. What you came here for. Today's update is very, very interesting. Corey Fleming has finally been charged. 18 counts related to, the mishandling of the Gloria Satterfield estate. I need coffee. Now, you're going to ask me, who's Corey Fleming? Well, Corey Fleming is best friends with Alec Murdaugh. They went to law school together. They, were buddy. They did not work in the same law firm, but it was kind of the good old boy system. He would call him up and do me a favor. I can do you a favor. This is the whole way this community works. So Corey agreed to represent the 2 young men that survived Gloria Satterfield was Alec Murdaugh's housekeeper. There's a couple of different versions. She either was tripped by the dogs and fell and hit her head, or a dog knocked her off the steps and she fell and hit her head. She lived for 3 weeks in the hospital, passed away. Alec Murdaugh, at her funeral, tells her 2 sons, listen, I'm going to send you to Corey Fleming. I want you to go see Corey Fleming. He's going to represent you. I want you to sue me. And then I'm going to tell my insurance company to admit liability and pay you guys lots of money. I'm in. So the two boys, they go over to Corey Fleming. He signs them up. And he's supposed to be representing them. And then, I think I told you last week, there's this weird settlement that happens even before the litigation starts. The insurance company has already agreed to pay $4-point-something million, I think it's $4.3 million, to this family. Even before litigation starts, they've agreed to pay it. What? This never happens. So they have this informal hearing in front of this judge, and she approves the settlement and agrees after Corey Fleming asks her to. Can you take Alec Murdaugh's name off of this suit? Because, we don't want the people in the boating accident lawsuit where Mallory Beach is killed and Paul Murdaugh was driving the boat. That's a whole nother thing. We don't want them to know that, that my homeowner's insurance has paid money, because they're trying to get that same money. And I'm sure there's an aggregate on the insurance policy. Anyhow, the settlement is approved. Corey mails the checks to Alex, who says he's going to open a Forge account. Now, Forge is an annuity company. Once you have some money and you want to put it into an annuity, you send it to Forge. They'll set it up any way you want. This way, the two young men that survived Gloria Satterfield would get amount of money over time instead of one lump sum. They never got a dime, because Alec, when he got the money from Corey, he gets the check, he goes to the bank, Palmetto State Bank. I don't know if it was that bank, but he likes to use Palmetto State Bank. He goes to the bank, he opens an account under the name of Forge, cashes the check. No one ever sees a dime of the money except Alec Murdaugh. At least that's what we're led to believe. Now, so Corey also represented at the request of Alex Murdaugh. This has to do with the boating accident. When the boating accident happened, there was an investigation that took place, and there was some controversy as to who was driving. Was it Paul? Was it Connor? So Connor says, no, it was Paul was driving. So everybody goes to the hospital after this. During the investigation, Alec Murdaugh is at the hospital. His son, Paul, never gets drug tested, no sobriety test. Connor does. So Connor is suing Alex Murdaugh for trying to set him up as being the driver when he wasn't the driver. And he hires Corey to represent him. Now, Connor figures out pretty quickly that this is not in his best interest. And Connor fires Corey and gets his own lawyer and adds Corey to the lawsuit. Now, Corey, you're in on this. What a tangled web we weave. So anyway, back to the arrest. So charges are filed against Corey Fleming, who's already in trouble with the Georgia bar. He's a member of the Georgia bar and the South Carolina bar, but I'm not understanding that relationship. But anyway, a few weeks before his arrest, he has a civil attorney file a 50-page letter, single-spaced, to the Georgia bar explaining how all of this is Alex Murdaugh's fault. He's a victim of Alex Murdaugh's misconduct. 50 pages. Yep. So he turns himself in when he finds out the charges have been filed. He turns himself in. This is a few weeks later. And he appears at, he's in custody. He appears at a bond hearing. Now, at this bond hearing is Eric Bland, who is now representing the family of Gloria Satterfield. He has 18 charges against him, all related to the Gloria Satterfield mishandling of her estate. Also there, it's a Zoom meeting, the prosecution, the judge, the victim advocate, and then the defense attorney for, well, also Corey Fleming was there from jail, and he's got the mask on and, and the scrubs. And he hires just a regular defense attorney. He doesn't go for the big boys like Alex did. He hires a regular defense attorney who's very good. She was excellent. And she's got his family, the wife, the mother-in-law, everybody's, behind her, which was important. She pointed out that, he's a valuable member. The community participates with all his kids' activities. He's on the board of the YMCA. He's very active in the community. He's not a flight risk. Okay. And she points out that this is not Alex Murdaugh. This is Corey Fleming. He is not involved in any kind of criminal enterprises. He's never been convicted of anything. He's a good lawyer. She even argues that the Gloria Satterfield, as soon as he figured out what had been going on, he, at great expense to himself, made the Satterfield family whole. In other words, he gave them a check for whatever he owed them at great expense to him. They never saw that money. She points out that he's been fully cooperative with the prosecution. Then when the prosecution talks, he says, listen, he has not been cooperative. I just want you guys to know he has not been cooperating. Apparently he says he learned about the misconduct in the Gloria Satterfield case in September of 2021, a year ago. He never came forward. He didn't come forward to any law enforcement, to the bar, nobody. He just, he decided, I'm just going to write them a check and everything will be okay. And the prosecutor points out he didn't disgorge himself of this money until he found out, well, I might be in trouble. Let me pay them the money I owe them. Then they let Eric Bland speak. He is the current attorney for the Gloria Satterfield boys, the two boys that survived her. And he said, listen, Judge, I think you should set a bond that sends a message to our profession that this cannot be tolerated. You can't go into cahoots with someone like Alex Murdaugh. You have to protect your clients. You have to represent your clients. You've got to be there for them. And he wasn't. So the prosecution said that they wanted $25,000 bond per charge, which would have been $450,000, somewhere in that range. And what the judge actually did was she made it $100,000 bond and allowed him to pay, the 10%. So he paid the 10%, $10,000, and he was out in a few hours. So some of the things that he said in this 50-page letter was that while he had had some technical failures following the, rules of professional conduct, he was still following the objectives of the rules of professional conduct. What? This 50-page letter is really going to hurt him because it may come into the criminal trial. Also included with this letter, and this letter was notarized, and he swore to the accuracy of everything in this 50-page letter. He actually says, I was co-counsel with Alex Murdaugh. The defendant? Wait a minute. I've never heard of this in my entire life. The plaintiff is co-counsel with the defendant, who's represented by counsel? First of all, if you were going to do such a crazy thing, you would have to have your clients sign off on it. And of course, they knew nothing about him being co-counsel with Alex Murdaugh. And he says they had the same objective, which was to get this family money. Also, it's unethical. and fraud on the insurance company. Yeah. Oh my God. So what else is going on in the Murdaugh case? Listen, there is plenty of stuff that happens every week. Oh, John Marvin Murdaugh, the youngest of the Murdaugh brothers, Alex's younger brother by a couple of years, did an interview. So, and this has to do with the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. There were pictures the next day after the murders of John Murdaugh walking with 3 state attorney, or what they call them, solicitor investigators. Now, this was being handled by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, not by the prosecutor's office. So this is very interesting. So he wanted to explain why he was seen with these 3 investigators, and he said he was helping them find Maggie's cell phone. We know that Maggie's cell phone was found by a family member along some side road. Well, this was the family member. He said, I used Paul's phone to ping her phone, and then I got Alex to tell me the code to unlock it, and I don't know. It's all very fishy. And then he just hands it over to SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. What? Yeah, I'm saying that a lot, but I'm stymied by all of this. I really am. Like, why is he there? Like, yeah. He's not a lawyer. He's kind of the black sheep of the family. He's like the one that didn't want to go to law school. Kind of like Paul Murdaugh. He didn't want to go to law school either. And he and Paul were very close. So maybe that's why he was there. But here's the interesting thing he wanted to talk about during this interview. Maggie Murdaugh's will. She left everything she had to Alex Murdaugh, but she made her sister, Marion, the personal representative of her estate. Except when you see the will, Marion's name is crossed out, and Randall Murdaugh's name is written in. Now, Randall Murdaugh survived her by 4 days. So she is shot. She and Paul are shot and killed. And then 3 days later, Randall dies. He was in the hospital when they were shot. In fact, that's one of the alibis that Alex Murdaugh gave at the beginning. It was that he was with his father in the hospital. So Marion, she has no idea that she was supposed to be the personal representative of Maggie's estate. So 6 months to the day after Maggie is killed, Marion gets a letter in the mail saying, we want you to renounce your role as personal representative of the estate of your sister. And she's like, what? I didn't even know I was the personal representative. So she gets involved. So ultimately, because Randall is deceased, Alec, in October, when he goes to jail, he renounces anything he could get under the will, and he declines to be the personal representative of the estate. And so now the next person in line is John. So now John is the personal representative of this estate. It's all very convoluted. But Maggie apparently was very cash poor. She had $50-something in her checking account, and she owed credit cards out the wazoo. She had a debt for this designer. She was redecorating the Moselle property, but the Moselle property was hers, as well as another property she called Adesto. This was her beach home. Now the receiver is now involved because Alex assets were supposed to be frozen, including anything he might inherit. And the fact that he renounced this inheritance, the receiver has a huge problem with that, because it looks like he's just giving away the money, and so the receiver wants a piece of this so that the family can get it. It's going to go into her estate, and ultimately anyone that has a claim on this estate, including the Satterfield family and the Beach family, they'll all get some kind of piece of the estate. But what they did was they tried to sell the Moselle property before putting it on the market. Now, they said realtors say this happens all the time. However, the Moselle property, because it's a Murdaugh name tied to it, if it had been on the market, would have gone for much, much more money than it was going to go for under the current sale. Now, I don't know if that current sale is going to go through or if the receiver is going to put a stop to it. I have no idea. This whole thing is so crazy, just crazy. And John Marvin said she had no life insurance. No. Alex had a $10 million life insurance policy. We know that because he set up that fake suicide attempt or fake, whatever that was supposed to be, also in the playlist. But Maggie had none. Where is she's got to have a policy. Come on, there's got to be an insurance policy. Where is it? So this is the updates that I have for you this week. I'm sure there will be more next week. I want to thank Mandy Matney, who does the Mudaugh Family podcast. This is where I get my information, and I appreciate her covering this. She's been investigating this family for 3 years. She knows the ins and the outs of the Mudaugh family, and she's from South Carolina, so she gives you her little local flavor to all of this. So, wow. Just wow. So what happened this day in history? On September 5th, 1972, at the Summer Olympics in Munich, Germany, a group of Palestinian terrorists wearing ski masks, calling themselves the Black September, storm the apartments of the Israeli athletes, killing 2 of them, taking 9 of them hostage. During the negotiations, ended that Israel released 290 Arab prisoners and 2 German prisoners. The negotiations broke down, so the terrorists took the hostage to the Munich airport, where there were gunmen, policemen on the roof of this airport, and they opened fire on the terrorists as they were trying to board the plane. Gun battle ensued, going both ways. 1 police officer was killed. All of the hostages were killed, and 5 of the terrorists were killed. Now, the Olympics was put on hold for 24 hours while everyone was allowed to mourn these athletes, and then the Olympics opened after that. This was the Summer Olympics where Mark Spitz won 7 gold medals. And in 2005, Steven Spielberg released a movie called Munich about this hostage situation. So terrifying, so terrible. I'm telling you. Wow. Okay, that is the show for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to watch The Leftovers. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow because we're going to cover the George Wagner, the 4th opening statements where he's on trial for murdering 8 members of the Roden family. You're not going to want to miss that. Come watch it with me. Take care, everybody.